Appreciate Fred reading our scripture for us this morning, as he is one of our beloved elders of the church. Has been a member of our church since 1948, did you say? 1958. Since 1958. For all of those years, and lends his beautiful voice to the choir every Sunday as well when the choir is not off. Before Christmas, Kathleen and I had a lovely visit with Joe and Mabs Harris too, and was remembering that Joe, who is 88 years old, was baptized as an infant in this sanctuary. With the Carpini kids in the youth group now, currently Harry, Mabel, and Sam, that means there are 4 generations of Harrises back there in this church. It's incredible. I was thinking, that you should have like special key fobs to the church with that kind of history here, or a marked pew. I think that is kind of the Carpini marked pew, but they're very generous about letting other people sit there as well. Who else in the congregation is 84 years or older? Nice. So these are our elders. These are our elders, all born before 1934, right? Before 1934. Incredible. And it was to two such as these that Jesus was brought, the first people that Jesus was intentionally brought to after his birth. And it was not by chance that it was Simeon and Anna, for they were the ones with the deepest knowledge of the tradition into which Jesus was born, the longest memory of world events at the time, and the greatest wisdom for what might be coming for him. As good Jews, Mary and Joseph had Jesus circumcised at 8 days, and then Mary would have been designated as unclean for 7 days. And then, as custom had it, after another 33 days, she would need to go to the temple for purification and also to dedicate to God their firstborn son, which is what they were doing. So Luke spends a good amount of time in his account of the birth in this moment of their visit to the temple. So it's clear that this moment is important to the gospel writer. He wants to make it clear to the reader that Jesus comes out of a devoutly Jewish family. With all the conflict that will occur between Jesus and the religious authorities in the coming account of his life and the rest of the gospel, Luke clarifies that Jesus is not overhauling or dismissing or even undermining the Jewish religion, certainly not looking to create a new religion, but rather Jesus is fulfilling, he's the fulfillment of everything that the Hebrew Scriptures had been pointing towards. And that they encounter Simeon and Anna, 2 elders around the age of 85, who are deeply rooted in their Jewish tradition, is critical. There were no, in the account of it, there were no formal religious leaders in robes and stoles. In fact, the formal religious leaders were nowhere to be seen when the promised Messiah entered the temple in the arms of his mother. Anna and Simeon were simply devout, older Jews who were prayerfully and doggedly awaiting the salvation of Israel. And it is they who recognized Jesus for who he truly was. Simeon took Jesus into his arms, raised his eyes to the heavens, and said, "Lord, my eyes have seen your salvation, which you have prepared for all nations. Now I can die. Let your servant depart in peace." It was a beautiful moment until he turns and looks closely at Mary. The writer Frederick Buechner describes that moment in this way. Then something about the mother stopped him in his reverie, and his expression changed. When he saw in her face, what he saw in her face was a long way off, but it was there, so plainly he could not pretend. A sword will pierce your soul, he said. He would have rather bitten off his tongue than have said it, but in that holy place he felt he had no choice. Then he handed her back the baby and departed in something less than the perfect peace he dreamed of all the long years of his waiting. Contained in that moment of revelation was also this prescient sense of what was coming for the baby. Born for the salvation of the world, to be chosen by our God of love to save the world so filled with lesser drives and forces than love would not be something to envy. I love, one of my favorite musicians is Dave Matthews, and he's a singer-songwriter, has this beautiful song, one of his first songs way back when, called The Christmas Song, which is about Jesus' life. He's not necessarily a religious singer, but often draws religious elements into his music. But he's talking about Jesus' life in this one song, and at one point he has Jesus raise his head to God the Father and says, "O Father up above, why in all this anger do you fill me up with love? Father up above, why in all this hatred do you fill me up with love, love, love?" I find that pleading so poignant. Mary is filled with love, holding Jesus, love incarnate. And while it sounds precious and lovely, Simeon saw in them what they would be holding for the world's salvation, and it caught his breath. And it was at this moment that the elder Anna came up to them as well, and she brings the joy back into the situation and gives thanks to God and speaks of the child as being the hope of all who are waiting for the redemption of Israel. We are not told if Mary and Joseph walked out of the temple with joy or dread or a mixture of the two. But then they left Bethlehem and returned to Nazareth to raise Jesus as best they knew how. The elders of the temple, in their many long years, knew who they were looking at and offered a blessing to the young couple and their baby in a way that the virile religious authorities at the height of their power or the busy younger folks in all their activity could not. Through devoted prayer, Simeon and Anna were attuned to the subtler energies around them. They were able to root what they were experiencing into the ancient prophetic words of their tradition, and in their wisdom, knowing the world as they did, they sensed also what might be coming for the baby. The next we would see of Jesus would be when he is 12 and sparring with the teachers of the law of Moses. And his parents, you remember, will accidentally leave him there, once again, amongst his elders preparing him for what lay ahead. The gift of our elders is what I just want to leave you with this last Sunday of 2018. Who are the elders who can offer you such a gift in your life of blessing? What if in this turning of the new year, you sought out specifically the wisdom of those elders around you intentionally, listening carefully for their stories of what has gone by and hearing their reflections on what is coming? for you personally, for the world as a whole. Those elders might very well be your parents, but they might not be, right? For some, their advice-wielding parents are in fact not the elders who they need to hear from. But there are so many elders around us who have profound wisdom if we but stop and listen. And it's one of the great gifts of being a part of the church, this relationship between generations, that a 9-month-old encounters in these walls a 90-year-old. It's a beautiful thing. Next Sunday, January 6th, which is Epiphany Sunday, we'll baptize Hope Sandak, who's Steve and Kate are new members to the church, and they've asked for Hope to be baptized. And we'll be bringing her here before God and before all of us, and there will be elders surrounding her right here next week, just as it was when Mary and Joseph brought Jesus to the temple to receive a blessing for his life. What a gift it is to be a part of a church community like this. Amen.